Okay, guys, so this is going to be a split. There we go. Do I have a perfect? Okay, we got 25 minutes until the after party starts, and this is a 45-minute presentation. So we'll try to go as quickly as we can. But this is going to be split talk/workshop. I had tweeted out, and I was hoping that Meet Magento Spain had communicated that if you're going to be taking part in the workshop part, hopefully everyone has a copy of Magento 2 installed and a GitHub account and Git access. Is there anybody who really wants to take part of the workshop and has all the stuff already installed? Oh boy, no hands. Okay, cool. So that means, I'll just run through the workshop as quickly as you can. Just so you have an idea, the main point of the workshop segment of this is so you have an idea of how easy it is to do what I'm going to be talking about today. But first, let's just go through a little bit of the theory of what's going on. Who am I? I've been working with Magento for 8 years. Or is it 9 now? I'm not 100% sure the dates. And I'm based in Canada, but not really anymore. And I used to be a developer and an architect, and then earlier this year I was hired as a VP for 6 months. But there's still a trick to that. I decided to get involved in community, inspired by Sherry. And after working on Magento 2 and doing some podcasting stuff earlier this year, I quit it all. And I've spent my time traveling the world and visiting Europe and working on a top secret Magento project. Yeah, I know, I ask myself this a lot sometimes. But that top secret Magento project really isn't top secret. What I'm trying to do is my goal to raise the security awareness within the Magento community, which is why I'm doing these talks, and which is why I'm trying to communicate what I know and share the processes and just things that have worked well for me in my interest in security in the last 8 years or 9 years or whatever it is. But why? Why am I doing this? The reason is, oh geez, a slide's missing here. The reason I'm doing this is because, well, one, I enjoy working in security, but Magento is an entire ecosystem. It's not only that one product. And if our ecosystem is more secure, that means Magento is more secure. And that means all of our businesses, which revolve around Magento, becomes I could say more secure, but we have more confidence in our own business and what we say to clients if we have a more secure ecosystem. But the important thing is no one runs a vanilla Magento system. Magento headquarters, like the guys like Piotr and the guys in Ukraine and Austin, they do an excellent job of building Magento securely. And the bugs that slip through, like shoplift, that it takes a lot of effort to find vulnerabilities in the Magento platform itself. But nobody runs a vanilla Magento system. And what this means, just translated, is that we who add code to Magento are just as responsible for the security of it as the Magento team. And when we add code, be it by installing a theme or extensions or our own modules, we add complexity to Magento. And there's an incredibly famous quote, and I know this is old, it's from 1999, and it's from an incredibly famous person, Bruce Schneier. The link to his blog is listed there. Hold on, I have a lightsaber. Yeah, so if you go to that, you could read his entire blog, but as systems get more complex, security will get worse. And we are adding complexity to Magento every time we launch a new store. So we have to do our own part in mitigating the complexity we add. Does everyone understand what mitigating means? I know it's not first English. English is not all your first language. It basically means that the changes we make to Magento that add complexity, we need to do our own job in preventing that from adding security problems to Magento. But to manage that, I have a plan. And I've been using these Meet Magento events as a way to execute my plan. And I'll tell you how this works. In Meet Magento, I was here in Spain and New York in 2015, And you could go look at the video. I presented a trail map of Magento security. It was a very high level way of how I think about Magento security, and I try to encourage everyone in the room to also use elements from that when you're thinking about securing your Magento stores or your extensions or your customer stores. And it's a good starting point. But since then, what I've done is I've started digging deeper into more individual topics. So we have a richer understanding of these things. So the OWASP Top 10 I presented at Imagine in Croatia, and Developers Paradise in Croatia. And also what I'm doing here today is the second of my deep dives, which is proactive Magento security. I'm calling it part 1A because part 1 was just a talk, and the A part is adding on the workshop to it. So what is proactive security? It's the tasks we can do now to handle the inevitable attacks. And yes, we call the attacks inevitable. Pretending you're not going to be attacked is just the wrong approach to how you should be thinking about Magento security. And really, there's so many things you could do to prevent attacks that it's just way too much for 25 minutes of talking. And I already talked about those other points. So what we need to do is look at the big fish. We got to look at the easiest things we could do to prevent attacks. And how did I figure out what was the biggest thing to do? What's the easiest approach? Well, so when you're thinking about security, sorry, I'm a little bit lost because my slides have changed. The biggest thing involved in proactive approach really depends on, is really called capturing security intelligence. And my question here for you, is there anybody right now who is capturing security intelligence of the Magento store? Nobody. One? One. Sweet. Probably you don't know what this means. It's also called security logging. So maybe some more hands. Is there anybody doing secure logging on their Magento stores? So two, three, sweet. And basically what it is when a hacker breaks into any system, the first thing he does is go after the logs. He either disables it, or the fancy hackers who want to show off, they sanitize the logs, and then they keep moving. So if it is one of the most important things that hackers go after compromising a system, then obviously it's something that we should be paying a lot of attention to. And my goal here today is to show you how to do security logging and really how easy it is to do. So how do we get ourselves in this situation where there's 3 or 4 people who do security-only logging in the room? Basically, how most Magento projects go like this. First, we define some features. Then, we write some code, and then there's some scope creep, and then there's some more scope creep, and then, we push some of those scope creeps to version 1.1, and then, we work really hard and we finish with version 1, and we launch. We launch our site. It's live. Black Friday is coming up, making money. Then we first fix the bugs that's live, and then we start working on version 1.1. The problem is that we don't spend any time thinking about security in this process because it's way too fast. And there's a reason launch day is in bold here. And it's not because it's the day that we put it live and we celebrate and we're like, okay, yeah, great job, everybody. But this is the day that our attack surface of our Magento store goes from 0 to 100. This is the day that we actually have to be worried about. And we don't think about security all the way up until launch day. But there is a solution to this. And we need to start when we writing the software definitions and when we start planning our software. And what we need to do is we need to plan specific security logging, not debug logging, because there's all too many times where we're looking at a store that's been compromised and they're like, well, can we look to see how the attacker got in? And they're like, well, we got some debug logs lying around. That's not useful. What we need is secure logging for the custom code that you put onto your site. Okay, and it's very simple to define this at the beginning of a project. We define our data we need logged. We define what format it needs to be logged in and how often it needs to be delivered. And the most important part is we need to define who's going to review this, because usually when I talk about security, I really say it's the people and processes you have first. What we need as part of security logging, I think the most important part is we need to say, okay, Miguel is going to look at the security logs from the store every day after Scrum. So 10:30 after Scrum, he gets a cup of coffee, sits down, and he looks at the security logs from the day before. If you don't have that process and you don't have that person in your organization looking at security logs, it doesn't make sense billing it, because the security logs are just going to sit there and not going to help you at all. So I'm going to go over some really quick things, and it may seem basic to you, but the problem is, in my 9 years of working, I've gone through so many extensions, and I've seen these things been done wrong so many times. Probably you're not going to do this because you're smart, but you might want to look at the extensions you currently use in your store to make sure that they don't do this, especially if you have old stores if you've taken over from years ago. Here's some sample events to log, and obviously very little extensions do this. So input validation is really simple. So if you have inputs coming into your store and you're getting a bunch of JavaScript in a field that's expecting a date, that's a big problem. So something like that you want to put into your security log. So then, on, what is today? Wednesday? On Tuesday? So on Wednesday's morning, Miguel's going to say, oh, wait, someone's been pushing a bunch of JavaScript in our date field, and it's easy to see an attacker, just testing the limits of your system. Output validation is also an important thing to log, because if all of a sudden, MySQL's, what is usually a small query, returns 30 gigabytes of data, then someone's figured out a SQL injection and is trying to exfiltrate data from your website. And the sooner you get a hold of that, the better, right? So if you're writing a module and that module is logging the fact that, something really big is coming out of the database, then you'll have a quick idea as to what's going on with the security of your own module. Authentication problems. See, this middle one here, and this is not a dig at Magento itself, if we had security logging in Magento, putting this sort of stuff in a nice consistent format for a developer to look every day, a lot of stores would not have attacks as much, because someone would be seeing that, oh, yesterday we had 70,000 requests to our admin login page, and they all failed. So something's wrong. So something like authentication failures is a really important thing to put in your module. Let's say you're building a single sign-on or something like that. And you could actually download the slides and go through the rest. I'm not going to go through every single one, but I've extracted these from the OWASP logging cheat sheet, which is a big long website, and the URL is there for that too. But I try to pull out the ones that are more applicable to e-commerce system. Sample attributes to log. It's really nice to know the date and time something's happened. And most of these are really basic. I'd say log the HTTP referrer also, because sometimes you have an automated attack coming in from another website, and the HTTP referrer is usually a good idea, a good idea to put into your security logs. Don't laugh. I have seen logs, debugging logs in a lot of extensions that put all the stuff in plain text. I don't want to spend time on this. This is I don't expect you to do any of this. I'm going to skip the slide. Actually, no, I could get into it. So does anyone here not know what's a WAF? A WAF is a web application firewall. It's usually a piece of software or a box you put between your web application, which is Magento, and the wild, wild internet. It's a great tool, but many of them are not tuned for Magento, and it's a little bit more on the network layer of security login. It's great for blocking URLs, but it's not the only solution. You can't throw hardware or software at any sort of security problem. You've always got to have people to monitor it. So if you want to implement a WAF, make sure you have the talent to review that. And if you're going to be doing that, you might as well have your talent review your own security logs anyway. Security logging infrastructure. So remember, hackers hate logs, okay? So what should you think about when you're creating security logs? One, they should be tamper resistant. So if they break in, if a hacker breaks in, your entire goal is to, if they notice that you've logged all their attempts to get in, you're going to be delaying them. They're going to be rushed. That's when they start making mistakes, okay? So hackers, he breaks in, he sees that, oh shit, all my attempts to break in has been logged and sent to the secure server. One, either he's going to try to say, okay, I'm going to have to break into that secure server to erase the history of my attacks, or two, I'm going to have to rush whatever I'm trying to do. And if a hacker is rushing, he's going to make mistakes, and it's going to be much easier to recover from any sort of breach. So that's why you should make your logs tamper resistant. And a couple of examples of these are read-only restricted and possibly encrypted when you move them out. Because if you're going to be moving them out to a separate server, you don't want them to be going in clear text because there may be business information or something that's very sensitive going across in your logs. Yeah, I had one more point there, minimal overhead. You don't want your logs taking up performance. Magento performance is important. The nice thing about Magento 2 is that we're PSR 3 compliant. So that means there's a lot of logging frameworks that we can use. And Magento 2 has chosen Monolog, which is an excellent option for logging. Here's an example of, here's a description of what we will do in the workshop part. Depends on how time's going and if you guys really want to do a workshop or not. We create a security channel for custom events. And we could create custom formatters and handlers. So this new channel we have for security login in Magento 2 would be able to send it to a bunch of stuff. Right now, for my workshop, I'm going to just drop it into a text file. But Monolog, out of the box, can send to Slack and RabbitMQ and New Relic and a bunch of stuff. One of the nice things Monolog can do is the fingers cross handler. It's a little bit experimental, but what it does, it captures all the information, but it doesn't notify you until that information matches some sort of attack vector you've defined. So you don't get pounded with a bunch of logs, but you get all the information when something is happening. So do you guys, we got 8 minutes before the party starts. Do you guys want to do, the workshop or not? Because no one really seems to got the Magento 2 installed now.
Show the code.
Show the code? Okay, cool, I'll show the code. Yeah, I had this joke and Peter Yap stole it from me, but he knows that, when I'm the last one giving a presentation, I could do many, many things which he can't get back to me on. So yeah, let's look at some code. Let's look at some code if I can find my mouse. There we go. You know what? I've got a completed version, and I will just drop it into PHP Storm, and then we should be fine. Just give me one sec. Yes, I am going to use PHP Storm despite the fact that, why can't I get where's my mouse? Do you guys see my cursor? There we go. Aha. So don't make fun of my PHP Storm poor use. Here we go. Can I just drag files from my folder, from my, where's it? Sorry? I don't know, we'll see. As long as I use TLS. Okay. So. Okay, cool. We got PHP Storm here? There we go. Okay, cool. Geez, presentation mode. Give me one sec. Let's do mirror displays so I could look at the same time. And where's PHP Storm? Come on, it's somewhere here. Okay, presentation mode. Was it under view? View, enter presentation mode. There we go. Jeez, where do we get my? This is not working. I'll do it. Shift. No, that's not working. I suck at PHP Storm. Okay, I'll just show you what I have. I made a really simple, model setup. Okay, all go. Delete. So what I did is I made a really simple module, okay? And it took me about 2 hours to get it right the first time. It's only because I suck at writing code. No, I don't. It took me 2 hours to get it done the first time because I tried to do a bunch of different things and then I just scale it back to just write a file. And that took me about 20 minutes to get it done, which is why I assumed we could cover this in 20 minutes. But since I don't have much time, we'll just look at the code. What we have here is a simple module. Do you guys see this? A module which has one observer here. So if I zoom in, how do you zoom in? Jesus Christ. View, presentation mode. So simple logger, a simple observer, and it's called admin fail. And all it does is that it, how do I get my, aha, I know something. So what I have done is I defined an event. So I built an observer that, relies on the backend auth user failed event. So if an admin user fails to log in, it will call my observer. And my observer, and if you notice, this code is incredibly short. All my observer does is that it inherits the logger interface. So it accepts the logger interface from the constructor, and it just it gets the username of the admin user that tried to log in and failed, and it does a little bit of fancy date formatting, and it just puts out an error. So the logger creates an error, and it says, okay, I've got a typo. So admin authorization failed at this time for this user. We've got 3 lines of custom code here, and what I have done, so as this is, so between this XML file in a module and this little observer with these 3 lines of code, what it will do, it will put an event into the system log in Magento. So we actually logging security events with 3 lines of custom code, a little module, and some boilerplate code. But remember I said we want Miguel to be able to take a look at it in the morning, every morning. If he has to go through every morning and scroll through the entire system log to look for security events, it's not going to be effective, okay? So what we're going to do instead is we're going to take the monolog, the PSR log logging interface, and override the default Magento monolog and use direct injection to make this observer log to a different file. And in all honesty, that takes, this one first. Boilerplate code, we create a logger, and another piece of boilerplate code, all we do is we say var log, security log. We're pushing our security logs to a separate file. And we say, it's an error log, because this level of security, this level of the PSR definitions, most applicable to security logs. So basically, short little pieces of code, and we use direct injection to say, this is the handler we defined, and this is not even necessary. This is the handler we defined. We say, we could say which file system driver. As I said, this bit is not necessary for the handler. But we define the logger that we created. We tell Magento where to find it. And for our observer, we just use direct injection to put our own custom logger into the constructor here. Okay? So we're not writing a lot of code. And this is the sum total of all the code that's necessary. This hedge change PHP, we don't even need that because that was another experiment. And I'll show you quickly what that looks like. Var log security log. So, oh yeah, ignore this line. That's just some testing. But basically, it looks like that. So now, when Miguel comes up in the morning, 10:30, he takes a look. He's like, okay, well, there's been no events today. No admin failed. Okay, all good. But if he opens the file up and he says that there's 70,000 of these, then obviously someone's trying to hammer your admin page. Okay, and this is basically I'd say 10, 15 lines of code that's custom and a little bit of boilerplate, which if you're good at PHP Storm, which with Magicento is probably take you 20 minutes maximum to put together. And this is something you could put together and put into every single module you have. You just need to plan it out properly. It's like, what are we building? What security problems we could have? And how are we going to mitigate those by logging them into a custom system that someone could look at every morning? And I'm just going to close up with some takeaways, and we could get to the after party. No? Yeah? So, a couple helpful tools. N98 Mage Run 2, really good for just slapping together that boilerplate code. Fabian Blackschmidt has created something called a log viewer for Mac, and it's really helpful if you don't want to be messing around in command line to look at your logs. So for development purposes, I'd probably take a look at that if you're not comfortable with command line. If you want to look at events that's built into Magento 2, Cyril Schumacher has got a blog with all the events that he could find in Magento 2. And it's really good if you want to just use the event observer process to log security events. I'm going to skip this slide. And, just further reading, Monologue has a really helpful wiki. And you could start investigating that URL to look at different ways to do your security login. If you want to push it to a Slack channel, or if you want to wrap it up in some sort of encrypted thing and drop it into RabbitMQ. All the possibilities are already there in Monologue, and it does not take a lot of effort in Magento 2 to create security logs for your custom code. Apache Scalp is a log analysis tool. I know it sounds kind of weird, Apache Scalp, but it's a log analysis tool. I haven't investigated it a lot, but Peter from Magento has suggested it in his blog once. So it's something you might want to take a look into if you want to get a little bit more deeply involved in it. And logs.io is a pay-for service that's run by Daniel. Well, it employs Daniel Bergman, who is very involved in the community with PHP and whatnot. So you could take a look at that as a elk stack logging tool that is really easy to get started up. But it's pay-for, it's not free. And I'll just close up with our key takeaways. A more secure Magento ecosystem is better for everyone, and it's our responsibility. And our priority when it comes to proactive actions is security-focused logging, because it's the easiest thing for us to do, and it makes the biggest difference when it comes to anyone who's trying to attack our systems, be it noticing an attack early or having an attacker get a little bit frustrated when he comes in and sees that we've seen everything he's been trying. Also, build security logging into your stores and extensions. It's not that hard. If I could talk through it in 5 minutes and build it myself in 20 minutes, you guys should have no problems integrating it into your system. Obviously, you want to write tests and whatnot. I should say that, otherwise Finn and I will not be happy. And Monologue is easy and versatile enough to handle your use case, be it as large as it is to put it into a bulk stack, or as small as it's just dropping into your Slack channel. And the most important thing is if you're going to build security logging into your custom modules or extensions, make sure you have a person who's reviewing the logs and summaries on a regular basis. If you don't have this, it doesn't make sense building it. And thank you. I guess there's no questions because we're out of time. That's my Twitter. If you have any questions, shoot me a message on Twitter. I've got open DMs. And the slides are already online. You could download them. I even think the video of Peter is on those slides, so you have that too. So yeah, thank you guys so much. And cool. After party. Maybe.